Imagine having like a universal language to understand our planet, a language that translates the chaos of satellite data into clear, actionable insights from the most remote forests, to the most intricate urban changes. That's precisely what a groundbreaking new model called AlphaEarth Foundations, or AEF, is striving to achieve. We're talking about making sense of the overwhelming torrent of Earth observation data we collect every single day. Today, we're taking a deep dive into AlphaEarth Foundations. It's a remarkable embedding field model developed by Google DeepMind and Google. And this isn't just another mapping tool, right? It's a foundational geospatial AI. It extracts crucial insights from vast, often sparsely labeled, Earth observation data. Our mission today is to really unpack the ingenious algorithms and architectural designs that make AEF so powerful. We want to give you an insightful analytical look that we think will be particularly fascinating for those shaping the future of generative AI. We'll explore how it transforms raw satellite imagery and other data sets into this universal feature space for accurate and efficient global mapping. And this deep dive into generative AI futures is brought to you by Byte Goose AI. Our exploration today is based on the research paper AlphaEarth Foundations, an embedding field model for accurate and efficient global mapping from Spark labeled data. Plus, its supplementary materials and a pretty detailed study guide. Okay, let's unpack this then. What's the fundamental problem, the core issue that AlphaEarth Foundations is trying to solve in Earth observation data analysis? Because, the challenge here feels pretty monumental.
Oh, it absolutely is. The core challenge is truly staggering. We have just unprecedented volumes of Earth observation, or EO, data.
Yeah.
We're talking petabytes of satellite imagery, environmental data sets continually collected around the world. It's a flood. But this is contrasted with the relative scarcity of high-quality ground-based measurements and annotations. Think of it. All these images pouring in, but only tiny labels here and there telling us what's actually on the ground. Traditional methods, these sort of bespoke modeling efforts to translate sparse labels into maps, well, they've been costly, labor-intensive, and inherently limited. Limited in scope, limited in generalization. Basically, each new mapping task meant building a whole new model. It just doesn't scale.
Right, bespoke for everything. So AEF's solution is this foundational geospatial embedding model, generating a universal feature space.
Mhm.
For someone trying to understand the shift here, especially in how we approach AI, thinking about foundational models, what exactly does that mean? How is it fundamentally different?
Yeah, what's really fascinating, I think quite innovative here, is that AEF assimilates spatial, temporal, and measurement contexts. And it does this across multiple diverse sources: optical imagery, radar, LiDAR, even things like text descriptions, all pulled together. It then creates this highly general geospatial representation. You could think of it as a kind of common language for all this Earth data. Now, unlike previous state-of-the-art methods, where honestly no single approach was really dominant for every single task, AEF consistently outperformed other well-known ways of extracting features across all the application domains they tested. And crucially, it does this without needing retraining for new tasks or new regions. So for those of us building advanced AI systems, this is absolutely key. It's essentially learning a single, robust, highly generalizable representation for Earth data, applicable everywhere. It avoids needing custom models for every new problem. It's genuinely a foundational model, but for the geospatial domain.
That really sounds like a massive shortcut then. A shortcut to being well informed, allowing for crucial insights for things like, say, managing global food supplies or tackling public health crises, maybe disaster response. All from maps derived with, well, far less manual effort than we needed before. It's a huge potential boost for speed and scale. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me and probably for listeners focused on the tech. How does AEF actually do this? Let's dive into the innovative algorithms and the architectural design. This is where the ingenuity, the engineering really shines, right?
Absolutely. So AEF is designed architecturally to accept multiple input frames from various data sources. Each input frame comes with its own specific data channels, think different wavelengths of light, or maybe radar signals, and importantly, a precise millisecond epoch timestamp. So very granular timing. The model then condenses all this rich, multimodal information into incredibly compact 64-byte embeddings, which are like tiny, highly compressed digital fingerprints of a specific location on Earth at a specific time. Now, we define the full range of these input timestamps as the support period. That's all the data it could see. While the valid period refers to a specific pair of conditioning timestamps for which AEF generates a temporal summary, what it's actually asked to summarize.
Okay, so what's the significance of that valid period then, and the distinction from the support period? Why is that distinction so important, especially when you're building robust AI models that need to understand change over time?
Yeah, this distinction is absolutely critical. It's key for modeling a truly continuous observation record. which is a common challenge, really, in any time series data, but especially in Earth observation where data might be missing, due to clouds or sensor schedules, things like that. So AEF can generate a summary for a valid period, even if there's no explicit input data during that exact time. That's interpolation. But maybe even more impressively, it can also do this if the valid period extends beyond the input data range. That's extrapolation. This provides immense temporal flexibility without needing any fine-tuning. It allows the model to generalize well to future scenarios or fill in historical gaps, which is really a hallmark of robust, general-purpose foundational models.
Interesting. And at the heart of its processing, you mentioned the STP encoder, space-time precision. How does this STP encoder manage to efficiently maintain spatial precision while modeling these, well, really complex temporal and spatial relationships, especially across such vast data sets?
Right, the STP encoder. It's essentially a sophisticated video summarization architecture, but really purpose-built for this geospatial challenge. It uses repeated blocks of 3 simultaneous operators, and these are interleaved with spatial pyramid exchanges, which allow efficient information flow between different levels of detail. Imagine like 3 specialized teams working in parallel on the same patch of Earth data, each focusing on a different aspect. You've got a space operator using VIT-like spatial self-attention, capturing broad spatial patterns like, is this a forest or a city? Then there's a time operator using time-axial self-attention, conditioned on timestamps, focusing on temporal dynamics. How is this changing over time? Crop growth, deforestation, that kind of thing. And then a precision operator, using simple 3x3 convolutions but at a higher resolution to maintain fine-grained spatial detail. Crucial for distinguishing, say, different building types or subtle land features. This multi-resolution approach, different operators handling different resolutions and dimensions. Simultaneously, it ensures both computational efficiency and highly spatially precise features, which is a really critical balance when you're trying to model the entire planet.
That's incredible that it can juggle all that. But okay, how does AEF manage to compress all this multimodal spatiotemporal information into such compact 64-byte embeddings while still retaining that high spatial precision? That sounds like quite a feat of information bottlenecking for any AI model.
Yeah, it really is. And this is where a very clever technique comes in. The variational bottleneck with von Mises-Fisher, or VMF, distributions. So rather than just collapsing the output spatially by, say, averaging everything together, which would lose detail, AEF's bottleneck estimates the mean direction across a grid of these VMF distributions in S63. Now, S63 is a 63-dimensional unit sphere. So think of it this way. Instead of just outputting a single value saying forest, AEF encodes a complex digital fingerprint for that forest patch. Maybe it's specific species mix, density, health, how it's changing, its relationship to nearby areas, all encoded as a specific point or direction on this high-dimensional sphere. This specific VMF construction allows for a high degree of spatial precision because it's modeling a directional distribution, not just an average. Plus, we can actually parameterize the smoothness of this embedding manifold via the VMF concentration parameter, called kappa. Higher kappa means more concentrated distributions, allowing embeddings to capture more distinct, less smoothed out features. And what's crucial, especially for those building advanced AI systems, is understanding that these embeddings are deliberately constrained. They're constrained to distribute uniformly over S63 using a specific training objective, the batch uniformity objective. This prevents mode collapse, where unique data points all get mapped to the same few spots in the embedding space, and ensures we make maximal use of the embedding space, which really enhances its generalizability.
Okay, that makes sense. But given the inherent noise and irregularity of Earth observation data, you mentioned clouds, different sensor qualities. How does AEF's training algorithm make it robust and reliable? It sounds like they needed a very sophisticated training setup to handle such messy, real-world data.
Oh, absolutely. The training is quite complex, but very thoughtfully designed. AEF actually trains a trio of neural network models in tandem. There's a teacher video embedding model, a student video embedding model, which cleverly shares most of its parameters with the teacher to save compute, and a text alignment model. And its overall objective function minimizes several different loss components simultaneously. This is what achieves that robust performance, vital for handling the unpredictable nature of EO data. There are basically 4 main components to this loss function, and each serves a critical purpose. First, you have the reconstruction objective. AEF aims to accurately reconstruct a target source frame just from its embedding. This basically ensures the embeddings actually contain the crucial information needed to, in essence, regenerate the original data. It proves they've learned its core essence.
So it has to be able to draw the picture back from the fingerprint.
Exactly, using small decoder networks. Then second, we have that batch uniformity objective we just touched on. This is crucial for efficiently using that 63-dimensional embedding space. It pushes the embedding vectors to distribute uniformly over the sphere. It prevents mode collapse, stops all unique data representations from just clumping together and losing detail. They found a specific weight for this loss term significantly boosted performance. Third, the consistency objective. This one is absolutely vital for handling the sparse and irregular nature of EO data. Here's the trick. The teacher model sees all the available inputs for a given time and place, but the student model's inputs are deliberately, randomly perturbed. Maybe some data sources are dropped, or random time steps are dropped, or the temporal window is shifted slightly. This objective then minimizes the difference between the teacher's and the student's embeddings for the same location and valid period. It forces the model to learn to provide consistent outputs regardless of these input irregularities or missing data. It directly tackles that noisy, sensor-dependent problem.
Ah, like self-supervision almost, making it robust to missing pieces.
Precisely. And finally, fourth, the text contrastive objective. To really enrich the learned representations, AEF co-trains with a frozen large language model, like Gemini 1.5. It aligns the embeddings derived from the video sequences, the satellite data, with embeddings derived from geotagged text descriptions, things like Wikipedia articles about a place, or scientific species records from GBIF. This provides additional semantic context. It's a multimodal input that significantly enriches the embedding space, drawing inspiration from powerful multimodal models you might be familiar with in, say, image generation.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, thinking about the future of generative AI, this whole multifaceted training approach, it really makes AEF incredibly resilient, doesn't it? Resilient to those noisy, sensor-dependent, highly region and application-specific problems that traditionally plague Earth observation feature engineering. It feels like it's learning the underlying dynamics of Earth, not just what's superficially visible in one specific measurement at one time. It's developing a deeper contextual understanding.
Precisely. That's exactly the goal. It's about modeling Earth's underlying landscape dynamics robustly, even when the measurement process itself is imperfect or incomplete. And this capability to synthesize knowledge from imperfect, multimodal, sparse data sources into a coherent, robust representation, well, that's a core tenet of the advanced AI systems we're all trying to build.
So, okay, theory and architecture sound impressive. What does this all mean for real-world applications? How does AEF actually perform, especially in those challenging, data-scarce scenarios where getting high-quality labels is, really hard or expensive? This is where the rubber meets the road, right? The practical impact.
And the performance is where it gets really compelling. AEF consistently outperforms both traditional design features and other learned featurization methods, particularly, as you say, in those low-shot regime scenarios with very few labeled training samples. In what they call max trial settings, using maybe hundreds of samples, AEF reduced error magnitudes by roughly 24% on average compared to the next best approach, which is substantial. But even for extremely sparse settings, it still achieved around a 10.4% error reduction for 10-shot trials and about 4.2% for one-shot trials. Now, that might sound small, but getting any significant improvement in a one-shot scenario can be a genuine breakthrough.
Yeah, absolutely. That's potentially a game changer for critical areas: global food security, public health, disaster response, places where getting comprehensive ground truth data for training is often just impractical or maybe even impossible in a crisis. Imagine being able to make much more informed decisions with only minimal ground data.
Exactly. The implications are quite profound. Let me give you a few examples. In thematic mapping, like classifying land cover, AEF showed strong, consistent performance across really diverse tasks, from detailed land use mapping, crop type identification across huge areas like Africa and Canada, even down to fine-grained tree genera classification in the U.S. So it's proving truly generalizable across different kinds of environmental classifications.
Yeah.
And maybe even more impressively, in biophysical variable estimation. These are regression tasks. AEF showed a significant departure from other baselines. For something like estimating evapotranspiration, which is crucial for water management, it was the only method tested that had an R-squared value greater than 0.2. It achieved an R2 of 0.58.
Wow, only one above 0.2.
Yeah. And for surface emissivity, another key variable, it achieved the highest R2, while many other common approaches actually produced negative R2 values.
Negative R-squared, meaning they were worse than just guessing the average.
Exactly. Worse than useless, essentially. AEF really stood out there. And finally, for change detection, AEF excelled in both supervised and unsupervised tasks, clearly outperforming other baselines in identifying important land cover and land use changes over time.
What's fascinating here, listening to those examples, is it's not just incrementally better in some cases. In some of these truly challenging tasks, especially the regression ones, AEF seems to be the only method that produces genuinely viable, meaningful results. That really speaks volumes about its foundational approach to understanding Earth processes.
That's right. And importantly, its performance generally improves monotonically with more training observations. More data helps. And also with the inclusion of more diverse source groups, adding radar, adding LiDAR, adding environmental data layers, and yes, even that annotated text all tend to boost performance further. This multimodality is a key strength, especially for a generative AI model seeking to build a truly comprehensive understanding.
Now, one really cool thing is that AEF isn't just staying locked up in a research paper. The teams at Google have gone a significant step further by making these global annual embedding field layers publicly available. That feels like a huge democratizing move for the field.
It really is. Annualized embedding field layers from 2017 through 2024 have been released on Google Earth Engine under an open license. And to make them truly accessible, minimizing compute and storage overhead for practitioners, they quantized the 32-bit floating point embeddings down to 8 bits. That's a 4x storage reduction, but with negligible impact on downstream task performance. This genuinely democratizes access. It allows Earth observation practitioners worldwide to achieve similar powerful results without needing huge training datasets, massive compute clusters, or custom inference systems. It's really a move to empower the broader scientific and operational community.
And they didn't stop there, right? They even implemented a V2.1 with several improvements based on feedback. Can you highlight some of those key fixes?
Yeah.
It's interesting to see how these foundational models evolve iteratively.
Yeah, the V2.1 production model incorporated several important enhancements. These included things like removing requirements for specific input sensors or specific target variables being present in every training sample, making it more flexible. They added significantly more training data, including comprehensive USDA cropland data layers, and interestingly, samples from Antarctica to improve polar performance. They fixed a subtle bug in how Sentinel-2 timecodes were handled, ensured a full year of imagery is consistently used for inference calculations. And they further mitigated some visual tiling artifacts by applying frame dropout noise to the teacher model during training, sort of mirroring the student's perturbation strategy more closely. So yes, it's a continuously refined system which demonstrates that iterative nature of building and deploying large foundational models, always learning, always improving.
Okay, this raises a really important final question then. AlphaEarth Foundations is clearly a game changer for Earth observation. That much seems clear. But stepping back, where do you see these kinds of universal feature spaces and the underlying architectural innovations, where could they impact other complex data-rich domains, especially thinking about the future of generative AI more broadly?
That's a great question to ponder. If you connect this to the bigger picture, this whole concept of a model learning deeply contextualized, multimodal, temporal embeddings from sparse, noisy data. It has profound implications far beyond just looking at Earth from space. Imagine applying this kind of foundational model approach to domains like, say, medical imaging. You have vast numbers of scans, maybe CT or MRI, but often very few expert annotations, especially for rare conditions. Or think about manufacturing. Analyzing complex sensor data, streaming off production lines to detect anomalies, but having very limited examples of actual faults to train on. Really, any field that's rich in complex, noisy, maybe time series data, but scarce in high-quality labels, that field could potentially benefit immensely. Benefit from an architecture that can learn a universal feature space first, and then allow for very efficient transfer learning or fine-tuning for specific downstream tasks. This feels like a potential future direction for applied generative AI, moving beyond just natural language or standard images to creating common languages for vastly different types of complex real-world data.
Absolutely. AEF really does offer a kind of shortcut to being well informed about our planet, providing potentially surprising facts and an unprecedented level of detail at global scales. It's clearly not just another mapping tool, it's a glimpse into a future where advanced AI, perhaps generative AI, creates these universal representations for incredibly complex real-world data across a whole multitude of fields. We certainly hope this deep dive into AEF has given you, our listeners, plenty to mull over. Thinking about these foundational models, what kind of embedding field would you want to explore next?